Praise the Lord, everybody. We're getting ready for one of our master plan sessions, and we want to spend more time. We want to spend more time on the session and the presentation than we do on the introduction. Let me say that Reverend Dr. Charles E. Goodman Jr. is one of the great pastors, a new generation of great pastors that are taking the Black church and the church militant in the world to a new level. He's a reader, he's a leader, he's a preacher, he's a revivalist. He is a brilliant young man who is married and has a brilliant family. No, or he's not married. Well, I just said, which are not as if they are. And we look forward to hearing him. Go forward, Sister Martha.
All right, so we're for the master class, the strategic class, and the importance of a strong digital presence in the face of COVID-19. And as co-presenter, Elder Robin Blair is the Queen of Wow. She is an entrepreneur, and she is one of the leading facilitators in helping people, pastors, congregations, churches, and families to pivot technologically and digitally in COVID and beyond. So get ready to receive Dr. Charles Goodman and Elder Robin Blair. Stand by.
Well, good morning, 3rd District. We are so excited to be with you this morning. I am Elder Robin Ware of the Ware Agency Atlanta, and my guest with me today is
Reverend Dr. Charles E. Goodman Jr., the senior pastor of the Tabernacle Baptist Church in Augusta, Georgia.
You know, 7 months ago, Pastor, we were having church as what we thought was normal. And we woke up and found out that the pandemic that we had heard rumors about, I can even think back to one of our staff meetings where we were teasing about being in church with masks. And I really think you said, oh no, you know, that day will never come, or I can't imagine that day coming. And look where we are.
Yeah, absolutely. It's almost surreal when it happened. I can still vividly remember. I didn't know how serious it is. I mean, people can say what they didn't know. We come to find out the administration knew a lot more than we found out. And we literally had to make shifts from one Sunday. Second Sunday, it was our Women's Day, our 5 services, 2 locations. Things were great. And who would know in the span of 6 days, we'll go totally virtual in the 3rd Sunday of March. And we have been virtual ever since. So.
Wow. Well, today we are here on behalf of Bishop Frank Madison Reed III and his beautiful wife, Supervisor Marla Reed, and we're talking about church and technology. So for this session, let's just put it out there. I read this quote and I wanted to share it. Great innovation is born out of great crises.
Absolutely. I think at the end of the day, I don't believe that God will waste a crisis. And one of the things that I think the church has done that I don't think we get enough respect for or props for is that everything that the world is trying to do, the church has been doing for 7 months.
Yes.
When the conversation was going on about whether sporting events should have fans or not, or they're wondering how can we do concerts, well, churches have been doing that. We've been having no fans in the building since March. We've been having to navigate new restrictions and laws since March. And so I think it's quite intriguing that what we've been hoping the church will be as a trailblazer, as proactive instead of reactive, is where we are. And so here we are 7 months in it. And I think that we're still trying to lead the way into innovation and into technology.
You know, the very obstacle, of course, the pandemic, as pastors are facing that, the way they respond to it, it all depends on how they look at it. Speak to a pastor and help them with how they're viewing this opportunity.
Great question. I think, once again, as a leader, you have to deal with things the way they are. You know, one of the things that I think was very instrumental to our ministry, making the correct pivot and kind of moving as we have, is that we were realistic about what it was.
Yes.
We're in a pandemic. Things are not normal. And so we can't approach any of our methodology, any of our strategies with the thought of it being normal. Of course, we were hoping, you know, we didn't know how long we'd be in this. We did not assume we'd be in here 7 months. And we don't even know how much longer we'll be in this. But I think one of the things that I really try to do, and to every pastor that's listening and that's navigating this space, it's not normal times. So you can't make it be what it's not. And so, one of the first things I told people, especially when this happened, I said, you got to understand, normal is now ahead of us.
Yes.
We're not, normal is no longer behind us. And we have to embrace what it is, what it shall be, instead of embracing what it was. So I think that was really the major thing. So we have some leaders out there who are watching us. And once again, we're so grateful to Bishop Reed and his wife, their tremendous ministry and how they're leading us in this time, is that this is where we are. This is the situation we've been dealt. And so we make the change, we do what we need to do, make the adjustment, and then let's proceed forward.
As with any opportunity that presents itself, it's all about how you see that opportunity. One of the quotes that my pastor says, Bishop Paul S. Morton, is that the future belongs to those who are open to positive change. So obviously we've been in this season 7 months. Talk to the pastor that is still stuck in what was, and they could possibly be missing out on what is to come.
Yes, I think, once again, and Bishop Morton is a profound thinker and a great general for the church. I think literally, for so long we have tried to denunciate that word change. We think it's a bad word, but it's a reality of life. Everything changes, everything shifts. We talk about even in our preaching, your season's coming, your season's shifted. And so that doesn't just happen when we talk about favor and faith, but in the practicality of ministry. Things have got to kind of shift. And whatever pastor's out there, if he or she, whatever your context is, you have to embrace it. Because once again, I'm always telling people all the time, you never know when things are going to kind of transform. And you do a disservice to the call that God has on your life and the ministry if you get stuck in what God has done instead of trying to embrace what God is doing. I think that COVID is a great opportunity for the church to expand. Who would have thought, as great as our church is, 5 services, 2 locations, thousands of people that will come in week in and week out, we're reaching more now.
Wow.
Through a virtual space in cyber church through our TAB global platform. So I think, once again, is it comfortable? No. Is it what I would tend to lean towards as what I would choose to do? Absolutely not. I miss in-person worship. I miss my people. Sure. I miss what we had, the rhythm of church, but it is what it is. And so you take what you have, you make the shifts and the transitions, and you keep experimenting and seeing what you can do. And I really want to encourage every pastor, every ministry leader, this is the time to try. We have to get into the place where failure is not seen as something to be rejected, but actually something to be embraced.
Right.
And so if we can do that and just try it out and see where we can go from there.
One of the things when we were making that quick pivot, literally you made the call, you brought the team together and said, we're going to have to shift. We were already utilizing technology.
Yeah.
And so, of course, with you, though, you wanted us to investigate what new technology was out there. So when faced with uncertainty, you lead with clarity as well as humanity.
Yeah. I think as a leader, you got to kind of push out there and you got to also kind of see things ahead. That's part of the gift that God gives us as leaders is we have to see out, right? Visionaries. That's one of the things that I think was, a gift that God has graced me with is to kind of see above and beyond. But I would also say that a lot of the things that we were able to pivot and shift to, we had been doing for years before.
Yes.
God had already kind of put some things in place from our team, which, we'll talk about that. Having an incredible team is very important. Our multimedia team really is top notch and really appreciate how they've grown, but they were already doing some work, whether with you through marketing, our staff. And so a lot of things we have been planting seeds for years.
Yes.
Right? Figuring out streaming, what works for us, what equipment should we have, right? It was just things building along the way that we didn't even think was important at that time, or as important, became vital when COVID came.
So you weren't worried before COVID that streaming on Facebook and going live on YouTube was going to affect your in-person attendance?
No, we had already done it. Now, I will tell you, and perhaps we'll dig into this a little deeper, I think when this happened, it changed our strategy of online.
Yes.
Because we realized pre-COVID that a lot of what we were doing and seeing as far as online was we inviting people to watch us have church. One of the major shifts we had to do is that we realized now, being totally virtual, that no, this is a viable campus and a viable
Yes.
congregation. So now when we are online is not to invite you to watch us have church, but now the invitation is for you to have church with us. And that has been a major shift. But, that comes with trying to really look at some things. Once again, it takes an incredible team, and our team has been phenomenal. Just their leadership has really been inspiring through that, and their own innovations, because I always believe this too, as a leader, every answer should not come from the top. Right. One thing I've really been trying to stress to our staff and leadership is that a lot of innovation and answers should come bottom up. You're in the trenches. You know what we need. You know what is necessary, available, and you do the research. You're the expert in this particular moment. So I think that has been helpful, is what I would also label collaborative kind of leadership. Yes, I give vision and voice to what we're doing, but we need the collaboration, which means I am honoring the fact that you're in this position. So my prayer and my expectation is you be the expert in the position.
One of the things you've done, and you just said it, if you have a crazy idea, now's the time to try it, right? Because we're not going back to what was. So we'll talk about that in just a second. But Bishop Reed says BC now means before COVID, right? And then B of C means because of COVID. So we're in that space of because of COVID. And so we're taking liberties that we might not have been as open in taking. For instance, we're right here in your beautiful main campus, but you've got another campus which actually has a total different vibe that you were able to introduce some innovative worship styles, probably a lot easier than you would have here, but now you can do it. Talk about that a little bit.
Well, even at our main one, so you see our sanctuary now, there were some things that we even were able to do here. This historic building, close to 100 years old, seats about 1,500 people. So there were some things, like I said, that were in the thing before. We moving from projectors to LED screens here. But when we began the process of the virtual space, there were some things we wanted to get better. Like before, we had choir seats in the stand, and realizing that may not just be in this good aesthetic look, so we took them out. Then we're like, hey, it'd be cool to kind of have some lighting or some kind of dramatic features. So we now instituted lights up there. You have some banners that we put up there. So we try to do our best to modernize even our main facility, because one of the things that we realize is that when you're online, you need to make the transition from having worship in a sanctuary to having worship in a studio.
Wow, say that again.
You have to transition from having worship in a sanctuary to having worship in a studio. And so what we're trying to create now is a studio effect, but yet we're still gonna have the sanctuary components, but in our facility. So our Tab West location, we've done a total remodel, total redo of what that looks like. Because
during the shutdown.
During the shutdown. And that's really because a lot of our giving has been really good. Our people have been faithful as far as, been 7 months out, and they still have honored God in their giving. And so they've allowed us to kind of make some changes on the fly. Because on the end of the day, here's the truth. We don't know what after COVID's gonna look like.
Right.
So you want to kind of, I think at the end of the day, if you were kind of dismissive of online, if you were thinking this is only a fad for COVID, I do believe that the reality is that when we move in and we go forward, it's not going to be either or, it's both and.
Yes.
And before you were like, hey, come to the building and check us out online. But now I think it's going to be like, check us out online. Oh, by the way, we have a building.
We have a building, right.
So I think that's going to be the shift in mentality.
Well, we've talked about this offline, but let's go ahead and approach this subject of typically the structure that churches focused on was having a senior pastor, maybe an associate pastor or an assistant pastor, and then a minister of music. Now that technology pastor, that position is just as important, or do you think the weight of it is not as the second seat, but close to it?
Well, honestly, I think that they all will have to work. I do think that it's forced staffing to move from a hierarchical structure to more of a circle, because there needs to be complementation and there needs to be collaboration. So it's not a pecking order per se, as much as it is we're at this round table. I guess it gives the great imagery of King Arthur at the round table with his knights, which was always important because they all had equal say or voices at the table, and that's how it has to be now. Because I do think, once again, your multimedia team, your marketing team, IT team is just as crucial.
Yes.
We've had some instances where everything looked good here, but then my IT perhaps went down because of some key wasn't put in or something happened from an internet perspective that we just didn't have any kind of control over. So that's the thing now. If you can't get it out there, it's not that significant. So we've had to make some different places within our sanctuary, within our building. We had to create some dedicated space for what we call our Tab I team, which is those who engage people online. So I think all of them collaboratively have to come together. It's the word that's central. It's the worship that's very important, but also the witness to our marketing and multimedia is very significant as well.
Absolutely. So to those pastors out there that are still doing church as normal, for them, meaning before COVID, now's the time to start over, because we're not going to return to what was normal. It's going to be a new normal.
Normal's ahead of us. And I've said this, and this is a crucial one, I heard this on a podcast, is that we're not starting up, we're starting over.
That's right.
And this is a great opportunity to reevaluate the entirety of ministry. You know, I really have pushed our team, hey guys, what we did before, if it ain't working, it's a good time to just make the shift and the pivot.
That's our first point. You're right on it.
It's really to do that. So I think that's a crucial thing for us to make sure that we do.
All right, good stuff. All righty. And then our second point is, of course, that we want you to adjust, to be open to adjusting. So for instance, if you normally have a 2-hour service, now that you are hosting your services online, it is important that you make sure that your service translates to an online viewing audience. 2 hours did work in the past because we were here, we had breaks, we stood up, we did our hug of love. Well, all of that is gone now that we are just doing it digitally. So talk a little bit about what that adjustment looks like and communicating that to your external audience.
I think at the end of the day, also, you got to understand how people consume content. So one of the things that we have to move our mind from is this idea of live versus on demand.
Yes.
So when we're creating content, when we have our worship services, you can't get frustrated if you don't have a lot of live watchers. The real reality is there are a lot of people probably watching you after you've gone off.
Yes.
It's an on-demand kind of concept. Netflix has kind of pioneered this, right?
Yes.
Where there's a selection that's on demand. You know, me growing up, let me go and say my age, 41, I had to be home by 7:58 growing up if I was going to get home in time to watch The Cosby Show.
Right.
Because I had to be there in front of the TV
you couldn't do on
to watch
demand.
that.
Right.
Now, I binge watched the show this past Sunday. When I got home, I just couldn't get off my couch, and I watched all 8-9 episodes in a row. And I've got hooked. So I was excited when waiting for the next season that they say coming out in January, right? So a lot of how people are consuming is on demand. So I will say, I think it's also forced us to realize that in that kind of consumption of information, people don't have the kind of patience to wait that they would in an in-person setting to be there for 2 hours.
2 hours, right.
I think that's extremely too long for worship in a digital space. So we've tried to get our service down to 60, 70 minutes, right? Because that's all that people pretty much can get. I mean, it's foolish to even think that even people come in from beginning to end. You know, when we look at some of our analytics, a lot of them have timed it perfectly,
Yes.
right when it's time for preaching, which honestly was the same kind of thing that happened with church. I mean, most people didn't come in right when church started. You
Right.
know, they had timed it right between the offering and between the preaching. So they knew when to come in so they wouldn't have to give it offering, but they wanted to hear the preaching. And then as soon as that's done, let me roll up out of here. So I think, learning those trends is important and making the adjustments. When we started Tab Global, when we made the pivot, there's some things we looked at worship and we said initially the first couple of weeks, this doesn't flow right. We need to shift here. We need to add this. We don't need to do this. Right? We need to put this in place. We got to a point where we could finally get something that we feel is tangible, that is going to be for a good viewing broadcast. So that's the kind of adjustment. And don't be married to things. You want the message to go out. We married to the message, but we're not married to the methodology.
That's right. Cut. That's
Absolutely.
our third point. So we're going to evaluate, we're going to adjust, and then we're going to cut. But even in that adjust, I want you to talk about when you brought us back together, and you, of course, had 5 services, 2 locations, which a third one being
Coming, yeah,
birthed,
yeah.
yes. But during this season, you said we'll do 2 services.
Yeah.
So we have a 9
And 11.
and an 11. And then
We
the
add-
team got together and we said, okay, let's do a 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
So a lot of people might think, well, why would you do a 5 o'clock? The 9 and the 11 are already there. But talk about the success of that 5 o'clock and then the audience that it draws.
Yeah, at the end of the day, you know, our thing was Tab Global. So we wanted to show at this point, we're not local. We move beyond that, right?
Yes.
So we're not just a church in Georgia that operates on Eastern time. We are a global church
Yes.
that operates in a lot of different time zones. So as we try to do some more homework, we believe that the afternoon would give us another opportunity and advance another crowd that could come in during their time zone to watch at a particular time. 5 for us is what, like 2 for some other people and
Yes.
1 for other people. And, you know, so it just kind of gave them that opportunity. So when we did that and added that, that was also another touch point, another opportunity to engage another audience. And we've still been playing around with it. Do you keep your services up? Do you take it down? So those kind of things you keep working through
Yes.
to try to figure out, you know, is it an exact science? Absolutely not. There's some churches that do it. I've seen some do 9, 11, 1, 3, 5, 7.
Right.
And, but you got to see what works. And so we really been trying to figure it out. Another thing we didn't talk about was we added a Saturday Rewind, which was
Yes.
also a good primer because eventually our 3rd location was going to start on a Saturday at 5.
right.
So we want to use this opportunity to say, all right, let's try to build an audience at this time to get people used to us having church, quote unquote, at Saturday 5. So what we're doing now is replaying the previous Sunday
Sunday
sermon
on
and
Saturday.
then preparing them. And also we send out our e-blast to get people ready. Because we also learned my biggest giving days, I think, are Saturday and Tuesday, which is intriguing.
Wow.
So people are already giving before even on Sunday. So once again, you got to think beyond. People are not doing everything at one time. They are literally doing it when they get comfortable, when they remember, or that kind of piece.
Well, I know that there are, you know, I am faithful, of course, to my church, to this church, but there are other ministries that I watch on Monday night, and I give. And so I feel like I'm a global supporter. I may not say member, but I'm a global supporter of those respective ministries. So it is really important, which is my next point, is to be creative with
Yes.
it. Don't be so wedded that church has to be 11 a.m. on Sunday morning.
Absolutely.
In this new space, you could do whatever you want. And if you are able to build an audience, keep it going.
Yeah, yeah.
Because we're here, of course, to reach
And let me
people.
say that because I do think also, and as a leader and a pastor, I need you to hear my heart. This is not the season to think that you're the end-all, be-all, and only voice for your people.
That's good.
Because I do think there is this tendency to believe that you're the only person that people are listening to now. No, when we went global, when the world shifted and everything went virtual, most of our people are now exposed to people that they never would have had the opportunity
right.
to hear before.
That's right.
I know I got people that watch a variety of ministries on Sunday or whenever. So we have to be mature as leaders and pastors to also say, I know you're hearing other people. And this is not a cult.
Right.
Like I'm not offended because you
Right.
get to listen to someone
Somebody
else.
else, right.
Everything's accessible now. And so what I'm always telling pastors, that's why you do not judge your effectiveness or your congregation based on likes and views. I believe that COVID
That's
has
real
shifted
good,
how
yes.
we determine the strength of our congregations.
So no more how many you running,
No.
Doc, none of that.
In this season, I'm not counting my members, I'm weighing my members.
Yes,
There's a difference.
yes.
So I'm not necessarily worrying about how many views I got on Facebook, YouTube, and I think I'm weighing them. So now the whole notion of discipleship is different. I'm now seeing how our engagement is, how people are honoring God with their giving.
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, that's always been a marker for church. You can kind of tell how well you're doing
Right.
based upon how people are giving in that kind of piece. So I'm not counting people in COVID. I'm weighing people. And so you got to be okay with that.
That's good.
People hit me up and say, man, Pastor, I watched you and I saw Bishop Murphy and then I went to
Yes.
New Birth and that's fine.
Yes.
This ain't the season to be jealous. They got an opportunity to hear people, because people consume differently. I know people want to think that people getting dressed up and sitting on their couch and they ready to hear the word. And
It's not happening.
No. Most people now are probably watching you in bed,
Right.
with their phone. Some people have told me, Pastor, I listen when I'm doing my run on Sunday. I'm listening when I'm washing dishes, so it's okay. Like, it's all right if that happens. You be faithful. You be faithful to you. Do the best that you can do in
Yes.
your context. And I believe that those who are assigned to your voice will be assigned to your voice.
That's right. One of the creative things that you've also done when we started in this COVID season is we had a custom welcome video that was creatively staged with a couple on the couch, excuse me, somebody watching, I think, from even a bedroom or something like that, so that the person watching understood that we had shifted. And so we wanted to relate.
Yeah.
Talk about being relevant in this season as well with your technology and your videos.
Yeah, I think what we did, and there was great imagery. Once again, it takes a great team who thinks through that, was to really say, all right, how are people consuming this? And let's give the imagery so that they'll see it. And they will understand that we want you to be comfortable. Like even when we do our communion virtual, right? We send out
Yes.
something early. Hey, we know technically we're in the if we're in the sanctuary, we have the crackers, and at Tab we do wine, real wine. So we're not able to do
real
that.
wine?
Real wine, real
Oh,
wine.
Lord.
We that John 2 kind of congregation. But I think the thing is, but we said, hey, whatever you got,
Whatever you have.
and just prepare, whether it's water, grape juice, wine,
Oh,
it
real
could be
wine.
crackers, goldfish, whatever you have. So part of it is meeting people where they are and giving them that space to consume this, because once again, this is not a normal time.
Yes.
I think one of the worst things you can do in this moment is try to act normal. People know we're not in a normal time.
Right.
People are giving you space. People are giving you so much freedom now to figure this thing out because they're trying to figure it out.
Right.
Like no one has mastered this. We see how that thing is going. So one thing that I'm really trying to push us to, all right, guys, let's figure stuff out. We've changed the order of service. I've now put the sermon promo video right before I get up, because before I was doing worship, then I was getting up and I was like, it's a little odd because I'm trying to get you pumped. It's just not that kind of setting. So just always trying to figure it out and not be afraid to shift and do some things.
Now, of course, you have a team, and I'm honored to be a part of that team. But what about the pastor that doesn't have a team? And they, of course, still want to present an excellent service.
Yeah.
And so their technology may be this iPad, and they go straight to Facebook.
Yes.
But still, it is important that what they do, because it represents Christ, that it is excellent. So let's, I guess, give a little word of encouragement about working, where you are.
Yeah. Well, wherever you are, you can still be excellent. I mean, you can take an iPad and go straight to Facebook, and it can still be excellent.
Yes.
Like there's enough programs, there's enough apps on there to get a almost studio quality
Yes,
kind of thing. That's one of the
production.
incredible things, these iPhones and iPads. I'm Team Apple, so I just believe that's the phone of Jesus. It gives you the opportunity, even though they say Android gives the better camera, but I don't know, I have yet to be convinced of that.
Right.
But I mean, there are things that you can do to work it out. Also, I think this is a great opportunity. Now, you say we have a great team, and I'm absolutely true. But this is an opportunity to tap into resources within your own context. Like some of us have people sitting in our congregation.
There you go.
That got thousands of followers on social media. They know how to work TikTok. They know how to work all the other stuff. We just got to tap into them. This is an
Yes.
opportunity to utilize. They've been trying to figure out, how can I utilize my gift for the kingdom?
Right.
Right? They say, I can't sing well, I'm not called to preach.
Right, they're not
pastor.
part of the fivefold,
Yeah,
right.
but they may be in the sixfold. This may be a
Yes.
new
new
thing
fold,
we're adding.
right.
So Bishop Reed, forgive me, I don't mean to add to scripture, but there are people who you can find out, and they're right there. You can find out who have mastered social
That's
media,
right.
are doing stuff. You're saying like, wow, they can utilize, that's a gift.
Yes.
I believe those are gifts. Those are gifts that we need to utilize and mine for the kingdom of God. I've really been challenging our team. Hey, guys, there's people that got social media gifts. They always tweeting. They always posting. Utilize them. Say, hey, I see that you got a good way of, you got good
Yes.
insight. let's utilize you for the kingdom. You can help advance the kingdom. So it doesn't have to necessarily be some paid situation, but you got people within the context of a church who have gifts that have been trying to figure out, they didn't think that they could utilize it for that. There's somebody that really didn't think that them learning how to set up and record was a gift.
Would be a gift. That's
They
right.
didn't know it was something. You know, they were just making videos to be funny. And then you say, look at that lighting. You got good eye. They didn't know that that could be utilized to advance the kingdom. So.
You know, almost 10 years ago, I was on Twitter, and I love Twitter, and I wanted Bishop Morton to be on Twitter, and he wasn't. And so I went to the powers that be and said, I'd like to introduce him to Twitter. And they said, oh, no, he's not interested in technology. So it was so new then. And so I just said, okay. And kind of like what you're saying, I just sat in the pews, right? Had all these gifts with technology, and somebody from the team came to me and said, we kind of noticed you're doing this. And I said, well, actually, I'd like to share it with Bishop Morton. And that's how I got to him. And now, fast forward 10 years later, and he is a Twitter dynamo, you know, 250,000 followers on Twitter. So you're right. There are a lot of gifts in the pews. So, you know, put out a call. Do a call to action graphic, put it on social media that you're looking for team members, you're looking for creatives. That's kind of the buzz term.
I mean, think about it this way from a spiritual standpoint. One of the greatest miracles Jesus did was to feed the multitude. But how did the multitude get fed? Because somebody in the inner circle of Jesus
That's right.
found a lad with a little lunch.
That's right.
Somebody was insightful enough to say, all right, I see the vision, it's to feed the people. We don't have the money per se, but you know what? There's a guy, he's a little fella, and he got lunch. I'm not sure we can do with it, but let me at least get the lad with the lunch to the Lord.
To the Lord. There you go.
And that little became a lot. And that to me is a model of ministry now. Hey, there's a vision out there. We need to feed the multitude. We don't know what that looks like, right? There's people probably like what the disciples did. Their first inclination was send them home. Mm-hmm. They're getting tired. But one of them said, no, before we do all that, there's somebody that has something. We don't know what it can be utilized for.
Yes.
And when that lunch got in the hands of the Lord, it not only
happened.
fed the multitudes, they had leftovers. So I'm always quick to say, there's a little lad somewhere here.
That's good. That's good. So talk about, you mentioned touch points a moment ago. It's important to, just like we did when we were inside the four walls of church, to provide an opportunity to connect with people before service, of course, during service, and even after service. In my book, While You're Guests, I teach the 10-10-10 rule, which says 10 minutes before service, 10 minutes after service, you should touch 10 people. So handshake, hug, of course, we're not doing that, but digitally we can do the same thing using Zoom rooms. Mm-hmm. You can set up a virtual lobby. Mm-hmm. Here in this ministry, we actually have an on-air host and hostess that welcome everybody and greet them before we come into service. It's just a way to, one, get everybody on board that service is about to start, but it's also a great touch point to welcome them and let them know that we're expecting them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that was cool. I mean, once again, we took the concept, because we still do it live on Sunday at this point. We've done some pre-recorded, but we still do a live experience on Sunday.
Your Sunday service.
Our Sunday service is still live.
But just to your team, you're not
just our team,
back
yes,
open.
yes. But I'm there live, our worship team is there
Yes.
live, we're still doing it. But we still kind of approach it as a live TV show.
Yes.
So we got the host, and while service is going on, we have Tab I team, what we call those who engage our different platforms. So we have someone who's engaging the people on Facebook. We have someone engaging the people on YouTube. So I think that's very pivotal. And like you said, at the end of worship, one of the things that we instituted was, if you need special prayer and you need to see someone face to face, we have a Zoom room for you for prayer, for assimilation. You know, one of the things we do want to get better is a lobby probably in between to give people this space. We just had a good conversation today talking about how you can expand Zoom to include people that maybe can be like an audience for you. So that's something that we're looking at. There's all this innovation because, once again, these are things that everyone is just trying. This is the season to try. So, you know, that's the thing that we've really been trying to work on.
And one of the things, we're going to wrap up here because I think we're almost at our time. I want you to just expound on rethinking your events. You have done some amazing cause-driven giving. Mm-hmm. So one of the things you did, you forfeited your pastoral anniversary, and all those monies that would have gone to you you donated that, and actually it was given to, I'm trying to think if it was
Our Hope Seed offering, yeah.
114
It was our Hope Seed offering.
entrepreneurs.
Yeah, it was about 40-some businesses, but we raised good amount of money to bless them. And
Yes.
yeah, I do think it probably was
We did
collective
Hope
100.
Seed, and we did your pastoral
That's
anniversary
right.
monies.
Yes, that's
Yes.
right. We did do a
Yes,
special thing.
you
I almost
did
forgot
both.
about all that.
Yes.
Yeah, because I do think in this moment you still have to figure out ways to galvanize people and show people you care. Like, we may not be meeting in person, but we want you to know we're still making an impact. So yes, I Hope Seed, that helped those 40 small businesses, but also we sent a special cash app to some people, individuals, so it was about
Yes.
100 and some. But then
Yes.
also back to school stuff. We gave out back to school supplies, but we also blessed over 260 teachers. We realized that for a lot of them, they had resources. And
Yes.
even now we're doing our second Hope Seed offering, where we're going to be a blessing to those entities in the community that are helping others during this economic crisis. And so also we're getting ready to do the whole thing for the collecting the cans. We're going to do a special meal for rescue mission. We're going to do our tab cares for our toy collection in December. So I believe that in this moment, you got to show people you still care.
Absolutely.
And that they are still making an impact and investment into you helping others. But that's been what we've been doing before.
Sure.
We just had to figure out a way to put that in front of people. And man, people have been really just so benevolent and gracious and sacrificial in their giving.
And
to
that's
let
what
us
I
be helped.
wanted you to highlight, that even in this season, you use technology all the way down to Cash App, allowing people to give, but people did it. They
Yes.
responded.
Yes. I think everything's open, everything is open and everything can be utilized for the glory of God.
Yes.
I always say this, every platform that you give, every situation, and you can't get married to stuff. Like, I really was challenging staff. I know what we typically do in a year, but this ain't a regular year.
Yes.
So let's try something, right? So like coming up, our ladies' night out would typically be 7 o'clock. We're gonna air it later because it's virtual. We don't have to do it at a regular time anymore.
There you go.
Or like a hallelujah night, which we would typically get thousands of kids to come through. Well, we know what the season that we're in. So what we're gonna do is a movie night, right? And
Yes.
just have an opportunity, still do some things to kind of engage with them. So this is a season. Also, there's some stuff that we would do, we're not gonna do this year. We don't have to force our schedule
right.
just because it's something we've done. So you have to make that contextual call within your church and ministry. All right, what works? What's the best usage of our resources and still make the most broadest impact? So I think that's been crucial.
Thinking about technology, when you said Hallelujah Night, we did this as a part of your pastoral
We did,
anniversary,
yes.
right? We did a group movie night. We used an app. You can also do it through Netflix and some of those other premium movie sites. But it was a great way to bring everybody together online, and we shared in the chat as we watched a movie together.
Yeah.
Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, it was cool. It was great. We had some camera issues, so we've got that resolved.
Technology works
Yeah, and
sometimes,
it
and
goes. And you got to
sometimes-
be okay with that. This
Yes.
is technology. And so, some things are going to work sometimes, some things are not. So you do your best to put it up, and we make some adjustments. So we're looking forward to what could be next time. And most people enjoyed that.
Yes, it was great. All right, well, we are going to wrap up because we are at our time. But Bishop, one of the things that you asked us to do was to just kind of talk about, now that we're in this, is 7 months in, and we're not sure when we're coming out, kind of what we recommend or suggest that ministries can do in moving forward. So I'm going to put the first one out, and that is to reevaluate your set, wherever you're coming live from, whether it's a stage like this or it's from your home. As Pastor was saying, even at the other location, you've already updated and changed out your set.
Yeah, you had to make the look better. Had to look good for the screen. At the end of
Yes.
the day, that's our primary look, is how does this look on the camera?
Absolutely. Number two, of course, is up your production. Add lower thirds, B-roll, even news segments. Talk a little bit about, we do a phenomenal job here at Tabernacle with our news segments.
And these are stuff that I think you got to put stuff on there that communicates what you're trying to do without you having to say it verbally. And once again, even if you don't have much resources, even if you're having to do this through your phone or through an iPad, there are great apps and things out there, nominal fee, if anything, that you can work through, that you can have added to it, that can do it right there for you. So it's really a point where I want to figure out, how can I make this look the best?
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, when you're in virtual, your experience is being judged differently. Like our thing was get them in the building and our experience would take over. Well, now you got to see what experience. There's a different sensual level or sensory level that takes place online. It's visual.
Yes.
It's what I hear, right? When I come in the building, it's more what I feel. And so you got to be mindful of that. So does it look good? Does it sound good? I think that's the part that you can work on and really get.
So look, tell the truth and shame the devil. If the production goes awry, do you take it down when service is over?
Absolutely. If I could take it down while service is going on, I would. Sometimes they don't tell me to afterwards.
But that happens, right?
Yeah.
Because you always want to make sure that
Yeah.
what you're putting out there, you
Absolutely.
remember, it represents you.
It represents you. And so there's times when we would say afterwards, that was okay. Thank God
That
we got a
was
second
coming
chance.
down,
So,
absolutely. And then, of course, add touch points. We've talked about that, ways to connect with your audience. Give them printable, download sermon note sheets or host your virtual lobby, even virtual reality. I had someone call me up and talk to me about some new software that's available through VR. You into that yet?
it's interesting. Yeah, I'm open to anything at this point.
I'm like sitting there with those
Those big
goggle
glasses of
things
VR.
on. Yeah, but it was a really cool experience. And then, of course, make everything available
Yes.
online. All your
Yes.
processes to join the church,
Yes.
to request to get married. Have you done any weddings yet virtually?
I've done weddings. I did a memorial virtual.
Wow.
Haven't done a wedding virtually, but I can see that coming. Now, let me also push back. Let me push on this. Yes, put it up there. Your catalog becomes your friend, so you should keep your content up because you never know how people are going to connect. Once they hear something, they want to see what else you got.
Yes.
So keep your content and make sure it's accessible. That's one thing that we really want to work on is make sure that all of our catalog and content is accessible. But also I would say, don't confuse the people. You know, one of the things that I think that we learned early on was that we had too many doors for people to get in.
Wow.
You know, if you want to join, you have this option, this option, this option, this option. You need special prayer, do this, or do this, do this. And man, I can imagine it got so confusing. So create lesser doors, but then when they get in the door, direct them to the right
Where
bucket.
they need to go.
So if you want to get them to join, get one door for joining.
Yes.
If you need special prayer, one join for special prayer. Then when they get in the door, disseminate it to the right bucket that it needs to get to. I think that's something that we learned was, I think early on it was just a little confusing. How do we simplify this process?
And that's one of the solutions that we use was the Zoom rooms.
Yes.
So you log in, you go into a Zoom
Yes.
room, and then you have a host,
Yes.
and then they direct you to the
Yes.
room where you need to go.
Yes.
So I think that's awesome. And then don't be afraid to establish a new normal and don't go back.
The only thing I would change on that, and I agree, I've had to change my vernacular. I don't say new normal, I just say next normal.
Next normal.
Because one of the things we have to be honest about is we're going to have to really wrestle with the grieving people are having because of a normal that's not going to come back. So when I said new normal, I remember somebody reached out to me, Pastor, that just made me so sad. And I had to rethink that. I said, man, that's crazy. So I don't want them to think they're losing something. I don't want to say, by saying new normal, it almost suggests that the old one, it is, what I'm saying is the next normal.
The next normal. That's
Just
good.
it's easier for them to understand and to grasp because it's going to be a grieving process. Because what we had before was incredible.
Right.
It was fun. It was amazing. And so it's not to discredit that. And I got to be honest with people. But that next normal can be equally effective, even though it's going to be different. So I think that's it. And also, pastors, we have to release ourselves from it too. Because what we're going through now, we didn't get trained for. Most of us built our ministries on the old normal.
Yes.
And now we're all on this like equal plane for the next normal.
Well, some of the solutions that we have, we talked about, of course, regardless of the size of your ministry, there are all type of technology systems that you can use. I'll be sharing some of those, and Pastor Goodman is going to be sharing even some solutions that he has. So if you've got any questions, we are coming on live, and we are going to take those questions from you. So thank you so much for participating in this conversation. And of course, Pastor, you just being open and sharing.
Yeah, thank you. Anything for Bishop Reed, who I admire and honor his ministry, and to his wife. I thank you guys for being trailblazers and for putting this on. This is incredible. Thank you.
God bless you.
Well, good afternoon. Thank you again for staying in tune. Thank you for staying connected and staying in touch. We are absolutely grateful for your participation and most of all, for your engagement with us this afternoon. Listen, this is definitely transformative because we would not be able to do this in the old normal. But what you just heard, this powerful presentation and engagement with Dr. Charles Goodman and Elder Robin Ware was absolutely phenomenal. So Dr. Goodman, thank you so very much. Elder Robin Ware, we're going to get right to it. Listen, you have just a few moments. We see you logging on. Click, tag, and share because the information and the knowledge and wisdom that they have shared has been absolutely powerful. So we're going to get started with the questions. Thank you again for tuning in.
While we're waiting for the questions, we want to thank everyone, Dr. Goodman and Rock and Robin. The viewership today has been extremely, the numbers are wonderful. So we're just waiting for the questions. And as we do, let me share that Dr. Goodman, when you and Rock and Robin talked about how the circle of normal is broken, it hit me that Jesus kept breaking the circle of normal, which is one of the reasons why he was crucified. And then that took me to remember Ani's book entitled Let the Circle Remain Unbroken. Not the circle of normal, but you all talked about the circle of creativity, the circle of content, the circle of community. And could you all share with us while we're waiting for the questions online, would you all share with us how we expand our circle? I know those four or 5 points Robin gave were important, but if I'm in a small circle, if I've limited God's creativity and limited God's content because I'm in the prison of conformity to the past, how do I start expanding the circle and breaking out of the limitations technologically?
Great question. Once again, thank you, Bishop Reed and Supervisor Reed. Thank you so much for having us. I really think it really goes to one word: exposure. They're in this season. There's no excuse not to be exposed. We now have access, unprecedented access to information, to mentors, to all kinds of things that can broaden our perspective and broaden our world. No longer can one claim to be insular. And so I think that part of the challenge now is that there is so much brilliance and genius out there that now we just have to go and get it. You don't have to go to school to get this information, but it's right in my fingertips. Who would have thought some years ago is that we literally have a supercomputer in our pockets?
Absolutely.
And just as I believe with so much stuff that we have, it's how you utilize it. And you don't have to have people, and let me say this to pastors and leaders, you don't have to have mentors that you talk to all the time. I have mentors that I glean from, and they don't even know that I'm gleaning from them. But I become a student and a student and teachable because I want to see how people do it. This is time to figure out what people are doing. Read and go do the research. Is so much stuff out there that can help us better in this field. And so I think that's one of the things that we must make sure and make it a priority. It's not just going to come to you. You got to go get it.
Okay, there is a question that's come up in the comments, and thank you for engaging with us. One of our viewers wants to know what's the best software or the best app to use for live streaming and sharing online.
I'll let Robin hit that one.
I think that you can start at the basics, which is just Zoom, and then you can work your way up to an actual production suite. Of course, what Dr. Goodman shared, we recorded that at his church, and he has almost 3 locations. At the time was doing 5 services, so he has a full media production team. So as he said, it was easy to switch because he was already implementing these streaming tools. But for the ministries that are having to do a hard pivot, as he said, because this is our new normal. I want to make sure I say, what's the term you said, Pastor? You don't want to say new normal?
Next normal.
Next normal, yes. So our next normal, Zoom is good, of course. I just read that free conference call has added a live streaming component. And Supervisor, I saw somebody put in the comments even about those that don't have internet and are calling in. And Pastor Goodman kind of alluded to that. But we currently use Zoom for people to call in. We actually make it, I'm going to put Brian on the screen. Brian, can you add yourself? Brian is our tech specialist who does an amazing job. He's shaking his head telling me no. But
Brian.
he knows one of the things, Supervisor, we had to learn, and Pastor, you know as well, understanding how the audio piece works with this streaming, because we think we go live and we just play some music in the background and people can hear it. But that absolutely does not work that way. So when you're using Zoom, when you're using free conference call, we're using Switcher Studio, don't mind telling you that. We also have OBS, which is open broadcast software, which I think is free. So there are lots of options out there. It really depends on your comfortability level. And as Pastor said, find out who's sitting in your audience that already has the experience, the insight that can come to probably one meeting and give you all the information that you would have to pay somebody probably hundreds of dollars to give you.
Pastor and Robin, you all talked about from the sanctuary to the studio. The next question is, since we know COVID will be with us for a while, how do we move from the sanctuary to the studio to the streets? How do we not only do social action, but help police the lost, the left out in our cities? And since we're talking about a virtual footprint that is national and global, how do we meet the needs of our members, but also those who Christ in Matthew 25 calls us to minister to?
Well, I said this, and this has always been a motto of mine, that and not to minimize preaching and teaching, which I absolutely love and it's a passion of mine, I don't believe that preaching changes the world. This is what I believe. Preaching changes people, and people change the world. So one thing that we do is we can never forsake or forget how important our gathering virtually or in person is in sharing the word of God, challenging people, transforming people, and then those people who've been transformed and changed go out and do the work. You know, what's so interesting is that I guess in our contemporary mindsets, we're trying to think like this is something new to Christendom. But if the truth be told, we've gone back to how Christianity started. You know, we talk about one church in multiple locations, but when COVID came, we became one church in multiple homes. That's the initial part of the church. The New Testament church was in homes. When they thought about gathering, they weren't thinking about churches as we see now with thousands of seats. It was them gathering within their local community and context, evangelizing their families, and then their families touching other families. And I think what it's forcing us to do is get back to the basics. Hey, let's talk about evangelizing our home. Let's talk about making sure that those in close proximity to us, once again, feel the love of Christ, understand the role and responsibility of being a believer nowadays, speak truth to power, be engaged, and make sure that we're part of the process. Yet we are not of the world, but we still live in the world. So for me, it is, I want to challenge people enough to say, hey, there is a responsibility that comes to this religion. I know that for a long time, we try to shirk responsibility. We didn't want the accountability. We wanted what came with it. We want the blessings, and we wanted cash, clothes, and cars. But I think the reality of this walk with Jesus and following Jesus, he tells us the truth, deny yourself, take up the cross, and follow him. So I think for me, it is, our responsibility as a ministry is to give you the tools, to empower you, to let you know that there is work to be done, then release you to do the work. You know, I think that's the crucial part. You know, Ephesians allows us to understand that the word equip the saints. Our job is to equip the saints. It's not to do the work for the saints, but to equip them. And I think this is a perfect opportunity, whichever medium. The message has not changed, even though the methodology has.
Okay, thank you so very much. I have another critical question just in terms of remaining connected from our presiding elder. She says, I still have congregations connecting through telephone party lines. And sometimes it creates a difficulty, but what can we do to help strengthen the connection? And how can we use the technology that what technology may be available for more rural congregations or people who are not close to a city to strengthen that connection? Thank you, Presiding Elder Holly.
You want that, Robin?
So
Yeah,
party
just
line
real quick, I just want to add one thing, and then Pastor, please take it. One of the things that we did initially with Pastor Goodman's church is he recorded a video every single week that we sent out via email blast. Of course, you can send it through text, as well as put it on your Facebook page. You could start a Facebook group. I understand that when you're in these rural areas that they may not have strong internet, but I really believe they've got this. And so if they've got that phone, you can record a message, you can text it to them. Of course, as PG said, I'm sorry, Pastor Goodman, we call him PG. As he said, you can't do a 2-hour service. You got to take it down to, 1 hour, but you could record something that is a 3 to 5 minute sort of inspirational message. Do what it takes using the technology that they have. Send out a survey. Find out what technology they have. Maybe you need to go on TV. I know you're like going, oh my goodness, but listen, TV time and radio spots have become very affordable during this pandemic. So that would be my contribution. Go ahead, PG.
Yeah, I would also say, man, we just got to get back to the basics. I mean, listen, you can still call people. I mean, there is something to be said about making a phone call. Listen, one thing that we had that I thought when I first got to my church was antiquated is a powerful tool for us now, the calling tree or the calling post. Man, I thought it was outdated. I'm like, why are people call? But man, a lot of my older saints, that was part of one of the senior ministries. And that's been strong for them. You record a message and they send it out through the calling tree, right? Even this morning, I just did a prayer call for a friend of mine in North Carolina, in Mebane, North Carolina. It's about 8 or 9 people that came on his prayer call, and he just does it every Friday. So I think there are ways for us to connect with people, for us to be able to engage with them and also give yourself space. We're still learning. There's still technology being developed. There's still things that we can do. I think even in the rural context, and I had the privilege of pastoring in the rural context for 3.5 years, is you just got to kind of figure out ways to be innovative. And they just going back to the basics. Like I said, it could be a text message. It could be a phone call. Say on this day, this is who I call out of my congregation, or this is what I do. And so we want to do it in a safe way. So, there's always, don't always think you have to reinvent the wheel. Sometimes you got to bring that old wheel back out, that old spare that's been stuck in the trunk for a while, bring that thing back out and make it work. And I think that's what it is. People just want to know you care, and they just want to feel some connection.
PG on this is Biara, PG and Biara. Okay. So my question is, based on what Dr. Holly just asked, if I hear you and Robin correctly, you're saying be careful about imitation.
Yes.
And look at what in Exodus, God said to Moses, what's in your hand?
That's it.
So if I'm in a rural area, it doesn't help me if I'm trying to imitate one of the mega church pastors who has all of this technology and is 9 times out of 10 in a major city. I have to look at what's in my hand and in the hands of the people. And if I use what's in our hand, then it will reach others by blessing our local congregation, and the local footprint becomes a global footprint, if I understand you all correct.
Yeah, let me say this. I do think this is a season that we must trust the fact that those who've been assigned to our voice are going to stay with our voice. There's a reason why God has given you that role as shepherd of that flock, right? So they have known your heart. I think COVID has strengthened the bond between pastor and people, because at the end of the day, that's why they're with us. And they know the limitations. They know what we're trying to do. Once again, don't beat yourself up because you're not doing it like someone else is doing it in a different context. No, we're all called to make sure that we do the best that we can in our particular context. Acts 13 gives us a very powerful word, would say, and David served his generation well. Serve your congregation, serve who God has given to you. If it's the 20, if it's the 50, if it's the 1,000, you know, you've been around them long enough. You know your sheep, you know how they hear and communicate. This is it. So this is the season to just kind of reinforce it, you know, and make sure that the people just know your heart. You know, that comes to a multitude of ways, whether through a text message, through a Facebook Live, whether that's through a broadcast. You just want your people to hear your heart in this moment and to be reassured in that piece.
And Pastor, I want to make sure we share a handwritten note still works too.
It does.
Absolutely. One of the things I'm reminded of in terms of using what's in your hand is the robocall, our digital calling, voice messages. Those are simple software systems where you can record a message, leave it on a recorded line, or you can use software that's a robocall that will call your members, and you can leave a short message with them on the phone, via the phone. In the AME Church, we have a system called the class leaders. Class leaders? Yes, where people are assigned to a certain group of people within the church to connect with them and to keep up with them and to monitor their well-being. And so certainly we can go back to that. How are we doing on time?
Well, it's time to wrap up. But before we do, I wanted, we're going to let PG give his information. I'm not trying to inundate your calendar, but PG has been very open to working with other pastors and sharing. They've had, you want to talk real quick about the people that have even been coming to the church, Pastor, and meeting with the team?
Yeah, we have people come in, man. We're open book, man. We have not a monopoly on this thing. We're trying to grow together, and I feel it's part of my call to help as many people as possible. I'm accessible. Our staff is accessible. That's how I was always treated. And so, Bishop Reed, you know, my pastor, Bishop-elect Anthony Macklin. And so, for me, you know, that's part of what we do is pay it back. So, our information, how we can be reached through Facebook, through email. We are available if people just have questions. Matter of fact, I'm still learning. We are not the experts per se. We're just trying to go down this road together. And so I just love trying to grow together and make the kingdom better and make the church better. And so that's our heart. So we're excited about it.
And Pastor, I have to tell Bishop, he introduced you as being married.
Oh, no. That's funny. That's hilarious. No,
I got off when I found out you were a Philadelphia Eagles fan. And I came for you because, you know, the Ravens they just rule. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm a diehard Eagle fan. Diehard Eagles and Lakers. That's my team. So,
Robin and PG, could you all give us 2 or 3 books or podcasts that would help us as we move forward in this area? And then I know I'll put it back in the supervisor's hands. You and Robin, supervisor, can close us out. But I think podcasts or books or articles from both of you may help.
One book that I was reading, we talked about this, Bishop, The Future is Faster Than You Think, I think is a very good read that really has challenged me to kind of look at the fact that things change quickly. And even though COVID has expedited things, the speed of shifting and change and transformation is always fast. You know, so I think that was always a powerful. This Rethink Communication book by Phil, his name is Phil, let me make sure I'm getting the name, Bowdle. It's pretty decent. It really begins to talk about how one can grow in their communication internally and externally. They have been really a good resource for me personally. As far as podcasts, I listen to a lot of different stuff, whatever I can put my hands on. I think Bishop Walker has a good one that's out there where he deals with strategic leadership. But even within white culture, from Carrie Newhoff's podcast, I think there's some good practical things. It's rather lengthy, but it's pretty good. And wish there was a little more diversity. But I think for all of us, we must make sure that we keep hearing a variety of voices so that we can go from. At the end of the day, it's just like with seminary. You eat the meat and throw away the bones. And at the end of the day, you got to superimpose and know your context good enough to know what can be applied to what we do that can make it better, and what doesn't work for us, and be okay with that, right? We're not called to be cheap imitations of other people's stuff. You kind of grow and figure out how you do it on yourself. So those are some of the things that I've been reading, and then some other stuff, because I'm really into social justice stuff and some other things that we need to do. And let me get this plug out. Make sure y'all vote, because we need y'all out there. Make sure y'all vote. This is a serious time. So that's my little plug.
I would just add,
and Robin Ware's book too. She got a book out too that'll be very helpful. So.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I wasn't even going to say that, to be honest with you, but as a church consultant, I work with a lot of churches and pastors all across the country. And one of the tips I always give to the staff is to make sure you're plugged in to Facebook groups that are specific for church marketers. That's where you'll learn about all this new software. That's where you'll be able to bounce stuff off of people that are doing what you're doing. So they're not necessarily podcasts, but they are amazing Facebook groups. And then the book that PG was talking about, my book, is called Wow Hospitality. It teaches all of your frontline ministries how to create wow experiences. And there is a whole section on digital. And then I've got different YouTube videos and all of that out there. I just released a whole teaching on navigating the maze of virtual events. And of course, that does include worship, so that I give you actual copies of creating an on-air host, the script, what they should say. One thing PG and I talked about in our video was the importance. Now we're here 7-8 months in. It's time to say, okay, how can we enhance what we've been doing even more? How can we take it to the next level? It's Hallelujah Night at the Tabernacle. They're going to be doing a movie tonight. I mean, that's exciting stuff. They did a major fundraiser even last night for a building. You know, life hasn't stopped because of COVID. Right. Just the way we manage has to change. And so we didn't say, well, we're not going to do the annual fundraiser for the Child Development Center. No, we are going to still keep it. I think it was almost the same date. Was it, PG? Yeah. The same date. And we just did it virtually. And he even, I hope he doesn't mind, but, you know, he sent out a communication this morning. Okay, when are we airing it again? Why? Because there's a whole nother audience that may watch and support it later. The way we do church, it's no longer that it's a 7 p.m. banquet and boom, whatever you earn that night, that's it.
Excellent, excellent. So perpetuity, we just continue to move forward. We continue to evolve. We continue to make progress. We're using what's in our hands. For all of our viewing audience, I pray that you will help us celebrate and appreciate the wealth and the wisdom and the knowledge that Dr. Charles Goodman Jr. shared with us, as well as Elder Robin Ware, in this segment of strategic planning for radical reconstruction, the importance of strong digital presence in the face of COVID. And they not only showed and taught us about dealing and managing in the face of COVID, but how to get beyond COVID. And so again, this will be available for you on all of our social media platforms. And so you can come back later on and revisit it. I'm going to ask Elder Ware, as well as Dr. Goodman, if you will post the titles of those books. The future is faster than you think. The future is already here and it keeps coming. And then We Think Communication is another book.
We Think or Rethink?
Rethink. I'm sorry, Rethink Communication, as well as Elder Robin Ware's book, Wow Hospitality. We're so grateful because all of our clinicians and teachers and preachers and pastors come with a wealth of information, not just teaching it on air, but they have the resources and the tools to put into your hands so that you can enhance right where you are. So thank you for tuning in. Bishop, is there anything else? We're getting ready for our noonday hour of power. If we just keep going higher, Dr. Susie Owens will be the preacher of the hour for our noonday worship, and you definitely want to be tuned in. You want to spend your lunch hour with us.
At 12:03, we've got a break now. and you can go to our social if you want to use your break to look at relook at some aspects of the presentation, but get out your master plan book, write what God has given you today, add to your master plan, take away from it. God bless you. God keep you. We will see you at 12:03. Twitter, invite folk on Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, etc., to be with us in worship at 12:03.
And click, tag, and share. We're on all of our social media, Facebook, our YouTube channel, as well as the website. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you shortly. Thank you, Dr. Goodman and Elder Ware.
Thank you, PG. Thank you, Robin.
America needs radical reconstruction. Join Bishop Franklin Reed III, Supervisor Marla Reed, and Kingdom Strategists to strengthen and encourage our country in the days ahead. Join Bishop Leah Daughtry, Dr. Jamal Bryant, Co-Pastor Susie Owens, Dr. Dennis Dickerson, Mr. Marcus Henderson, Elder Robin Ware, Dr. Darren Thompson, Reverend Tamika Reed Sims, Dr. Charles E. Goodman, and Bishop Franklin Reed III. Plan now for radical reconstruction, a virtual strategy meeting October 29th through October 31st. Live stream on all 30 Episcopal districts, social media, Facebook page, YouTube channel, and website. Connect your family and friends for this essential gathering and time of strengthening October 29th through the 31st. Plan now to attend Radical Reconstruction.